Nobody talks about this honestly, but most people don't fail because they lack motivation. They fail because they believe motivation is something they must wait for. At some point in life, almost everyone starts believing the same idea, that if they feel motivated, they will finally change. If they feel inspired, they will finally work hard. If they feel energetic, they will finally become disciplined. So they wait. They wait for the right mood. They wait for the right time. They wait for a feeling that never stays. And slowly, without realizing it, waiting becomes their lifestyle. Motivation feels powerful in the beginning. It gives hope. It creates excitement. It makes the future look beautiful. But motivation has a problem. It disappears the moment real effort begins. You feel motivated at night when you imagine a better life. But in the morning, when your body feels heavy, motivation is silent. You feel motivated when watching others succeed. But when it's time to work alone, motivation leaves. That's not because something is wrong with you. That's because motivation was never designed to carry you through discomfort. Motivation lives in imagination. Growth lives in reality. And imagination is always easier than reality. This is why people keep restarting. They start strong. They promise themselves this time will be different. They feel excited for a few days. Then life becomes normal again. Tiredness returns. Stress returns. Boredom returns. And suddenly the same person who felt unstoppable feels empty again. This cycle repeats for years, not because people are weak, but because they are depending on something unreliable. Motivation is emotional energy, and emotional energy is unstable. It changes with sleep, it changes with mood, it changes with weather, it changes with one bad conversation. If your progress depends on emotion, your life will move only when emotion allows it. That is not freedom. That is emotional slavery. Most people don't realize this because motivation feels good. It feels positive. It feels hopeful. It feels safe. Reality does not feel safe. Reality demands effort without guarantee, and the human brain does not like uncertainty. The brain's main job is not to make you successful. Its job is to keep you safe. Safe means familiar. Safe means predictable. Safe means low effort. Even if that safety keeps you stuck. That's why the brain resists change even when change is good. Growth creates uncertainty. Uncertainty feels dangerous to the brain, so the brain pushes you back toward comfort. It whispers small things. Do it tomorrow. You're tired today. You deserve rest. Start fresh next week. These thoughts don't sound harmful. That's why they work. Motivation cannot fight this voice. Because motivation speaks loudly for a moment, but comfort whispers forever. This is why motivation fades when difficulty appears. Difficulty activates resistance. Resistance is not laziness. Resistance is protection. Protection from discomfort. Protection from failure. Protection from emotional pain. Most people call themselves lazy when this happens. They blame their character. But the truth is simpler. They were never trained to act without feeling good. They were trained to act only when they felt ready. And readiness is rare. Waiting to feel ready keeps people trapped. Because readiness comes after action, not before it. No one feels ready before starting something difficult. You don't feel ready before building discipline. You don't feel ready before learning focus. You don't feel ready before changing habits. You feel ready only after you've already done it many times. But people reverse the order. They wait for confidence before action. Confidence is not the cause. Confidence is the result. That misunderstanding destroys progress. Motivation makes people believe they need to feel strong first. Reality requires you to move while feeling weak. This is the part no one likes hearing. Growth does not begin when you feel powerful. It begins when you act without power. When you show up tired. When you work without excitement. When you continue without emotional reward. That is where real change starts. Most people never reach this stage. They quit right when improvement begins. Because improvement feels uncomfortable at first. New habits feel unnatural. Discipline feels forced. Consistency feels boring. Motivation promises excitement. Reality offers repetition. Repetition doesn't feel inspiring, but repetition rewires the brain. Each time you act without motivation, something important happens. Your brain learns that discomfort is survivable. The fear slowly weakens. The resistance slowly loses control, but this only happens through action, not through thinking, not through planning, not through motivation. Action teaches what motivation never can. This is why people who depend on motivation keep restarting, and people who depend on structure keep progressing. Structure does not care how you feel. Structure does not wait for mood. Structure moves whether you're inspired or not. That's why structure feels boring, and that's exactly why it works. Motivation wants intensity. Structure wants consistency. Intensity impresses people. Consistency changes lives. Most people chase intensity because it looks powerful. But power does not come from emotion. It comes from reliability, being able to show up again, and again, and again, even when nothing feels special. That ability separates those who change from those who only dream. At some point, a shift must happen. You stop asking, "Do I feel motivated today?" And you start asking, "What needs to be done today?" That question changes everything. It removes emotion from decision-making. It makes action neutral. Neutral actions repeat easily. Repeated actions form habits. Habits shape identity. Identity determines your future. This is the real path. Quiet, unattractive, unpopular, but permanent. Motivation makes you feel alive. Discipline makes you become someone. And becoming someone matters more than feeling something. Most people think the hardest part of growth is starting. That's not true. Starting is emotional. Continuing is psychological. In the beginning, excitement carries you. Everything feels new. Your mind imagines quick results. But after a few days, something changes. The excitement fades. Nothing dramatic happens. No visible progress appears. No one notices your effort. That is when the real challenge begins. Not lack of motivation, but resistance. Resistance does not scream. It doesn't say stop. It says, why bother? It shows up as boredom, as distraction, as sudden tiredness. You sit down to work and feel heavy for no reason. You open a book and your mind wants to escape. You plan to focus and suddenly remember everything else. This is not coincidence. This is the brain protecting comfort. The brain prefers what is familiar, not what is better, even if the familiar keeps you unhappy. That's why people stay in routines they complain about. At least those routines are predictable. Growth is unpredictable. Unpredictability feels unsafe, so the brain pushes you back toward habits you already know. Scrolling, avoiding, delaying. These behaviors give instant relief, not happiness. Relief. Relief from effort. And relief is addictive. This is why motivation loses again and again. Motivation speaks to your goals. Resistance speaks to your survival instinct. Survival always wins when untrained. This is why telling yourself to try harder rarely works. You're not fighting laziness. You're fighting biology. And biology doesn't respond to motivation. It responds to exposure. The more you expose yourself to discomfort, the weaker resistance becomes. The more you avoid it, the stronger it grows. Avoidance trains fear. Action trains tolerance. That tolerance is what people call discipline. Discipline is not force. It is familiarity with discomfort. People who look disciplined are not suffering less. They are reacting less. Their nervous system has learned, this feeling won't kill me. So it stops panicking. But most people never give themselves time to adapt. They quit at the exact moment adaptation is happening, because adaptation feels uncomfortable. Muscles hurt before they grow. Focus feels painful before it sharpens. Mental clarity feels exhausting before it stabilizes. Pain comes before ease, not after. Motivation hides this truth. It promises ease first. Reality demands effort first. Another reason people stay stuck is overthinking. They analyze every step. They question every decision. They search for the perfect approach. Thinking feels productive, but thinking without action creates anxiety. Anxiety increases resistance. Resistance stops movement. Movement creates clarity. Clarity does not come from planning. It comes from doing. Most answers appear only after action begins. Waiting to understand everything first keeps people frozen. Progress is messy. Growth is unclear. You adjust while moving, not before. This is why small actions matter so much. Small actions lower resistance. They don't threaten the nervous system. They say, just a little. And once you begin, momentum quietly builds. Momentum does not feel exciting. It feels calm. Calm progress doesn't look impressive, but it accumulates. Motivation seeks dramatic change. Reality rewards small repetition. Another uncomfortable truth is that boredom is not a sign of failure. Boredom is a sign of stability. When chaos disappears, boredom appears. Most people mistake boredom for lack of purpose, so they sabotage consistency to feel stimulation again. Drama feels alive. Silence feels empty. But silence is where growth happens. When life becomes quiet, improvement begins. This is why people addicted to motivation keep creating chaos. They start and stop. They rush and crash. They feel intense and then disappear. They mistake emotional movement for progress. Progress is slower, quieter, almost invisible at first. This invisibility scares people. They want proof. But proof arrives late, long after the effort. Those who continue without proof change their life. Those who wait for proof stay where they are. Another trap is self-judgment. People insult themselves for struggling. They say they are weak, undisciplined, different from others. This creates shame. Shame drains energy. Energy is needed for action. So self-criticism actually reduces progress. Growth requires honesty, not cruelty. You don't need to hate yourself to improve. You need to understand yourself. Understanding creates strategy. Hatred creates exhaustion. This is why calm discipline lasts longer than emotional pressure. Pressure breaks, calm repeats. The goal is not to feel powerful. The goal is to become reliable. Reliable to yourself. When you say you will do something, you do it, even imperfectly, even briefly. This builds trust. Trust builds identity. Identity creates automatic behavior. At that point, motivation becomes unnecessary. You act because that's who you are becoming, not because you feel inspired. And this is the moment where things quietly shift. Life doesn't suddenly become easy, but it becomes stable. You stop restarting. You stop negotiating daily. You stop waiting. You move forward even when you don't feel like it, not aggressively, calmly. And calm consistency outlasts every emotional burst. At some point, you begin to notice something strange. The days you don't feel like doing anything start to look the same as the days you do. You still show up. Not because you feel strong, but because showing up is no longer a debate. That is when discipline stops feeling heavy. Not easy, just normal. Most people never reach this stage because they keep making every day a decision. They wake up and ask themselves how they feel. That question decides their behavior, and feelings are unpredictable. One bad night of sleep can cancel an entire plan. One small disappointment can erase momentum. This is why relying on emotion makes progress fragile. Strong winds knock it over easily. Structure protects it. When behavior becomes routine, emotions lose authority. You don't argue with yourself anymore. You don't need convincing. You just begin. Beginning becomes automatic. This is where mental energy is saved. Energy that used to be wasted on inner conflict. Most exhaustion is not physical. It is psychological. The constant debate inside your head. Should I? Can I skip today? Does it really matter? These questions drain more energy than the work itself. When you remove the questions, effort feels lighter. Not because the task changed, because the conflict disappeared. Another truth people avoid is that growth separates you from your old self. Not all at once. Slowly. Your priorities shift. What used to entertain you feels empty. What used to distract you loses attraction. This can feel uncomfortable, almost lonely, because the things that once gave easy pleasure no longer satisfy, and the things that build your future require patience. This in-between stage confuses many people. They think something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. You are transitioning. You are leaving stimulation and entering meaning. Meaning is quieter. Meaning does not rush. Meaning grows slowly. This is why discipline can feel lonely. You are no longer chasing what everyone else is chasing. You are choosing depth over noise. That choice creates distance, but that distance creates strength. Most people avoid this stage by returning to comfort. They scroll again. They distract again. They restart the cycle, because loneliness feels heavier than stagnation. But stagnation costs more long-term. Another uncomfortable truth is that improvement requires disappointment. You will disappoint others. You will say no more often. You will become less available. Not because you don't care, but because focus demands limits. You cannot build something meaningful while giving attention everywhere. Every yes is a trade. Every commitment removes space from something else. Discipline teaches you to choose deliberately, not emotionally. That clarity feels cold at first, but it brings peace later. When you stop overcommitting, resentment fades. When you stop pleasing everyone, direction sharpens. Another mistake people make is expecting passion to guide them. Passion is inconsistent. Some days it appears, most days it doesn't. If passion were required, nothing long-term would exist. What carries people forward is responsibility. Responsibility to a future self. Responsibility to the time already invested. Responsibility to the life you want but haven't reached yet. That responsibility does not scream. It quietly reminds. This matters. And that reminder is enough. Another truth is that progress does not feel like progress. It feels repetitive. The same actions, the same schedule, the same effort. This repetition can feel pointless. Until one day you realize you are thinking differently, reacting differently, choosing differently. Change happens internally before it shows externally. People quit because they expect visible results too early. They forget that behavior changes first. Identity follows. Outcomes arrive last. When you quit early, you interrupt the process, not because it wasn't working, but because it wasn't visible yet. Patience is not passive. It is active waiting while continuing to act. That kind of patience is rare. That is why transformation is rare. Another dangerous belief is that rest means stopping completely. Rest does not mean collapse. It means controlled recovery. Stopping entirely breaks rhythm. Rhythm is harder to rebuild than effort. Even on low-energy days, small action protects rhythm. A short walk, a few minutes of focus, a single page. Small movement keeps the system alive. All or nothing thinking destroys consistency. Consistency thrives on flexibility. Rigid people break. Adaptable people continue. This is maturity, not pushing endlessly, not quitting easily, but adjusting while moving forward. When you live this way, motivation becomes optional. You no longer chase it. You don't wait for it. If it appears, fine. If it doesn't, you continue. That independence is powerful, because now your progress is not emotional. It is intentional. And intention, when repeated, becomes identity. That identity quietly shapes your future, without drama, without noise, without needing permission. As time passes, something important begins to change inside you. You stop needing intensity. You stop needing big emotional reasons. You stop needing dramatic moments to remind you why you started. The work becomes quieter, more ordinary, and strangely, more powerful. You begin to understand that discipline is not about controlling yourself. It is about removing unnecessary friction. Most people think discipline means forcing action, but force creates resistance. Resistance creates burnout. Burnout creates quitting. Real discipline reduces struggle. It simplifies decisions. It removes chaos. It designs life in a way that supports progress instead of fighting it. You start noticing how much your environment shapes you. When distractions are close, discipline feels impossible. When distractions are distant, discipline feels natural. This has nothing to do with willpower. Willpower is limited. Environment works constantly. If your phone is always near you, focus becomes a battle. If noise surrounds you, clarity becomes rare. If temptation is everywhere, self-control gets exhausted. So instead of fighting harder, you begin adjusting smarter. You create distance between you and what weakens you. You bring closer what strengthens you. Not aggressively, not perfectly, just intentionally. This quiet adjustment changes everything, because now you are no longer relying on mood. You are relying on design. Design beats motivation every time. You also start realizing that time is not the real problem. Attention is. Hours exist. Focus disappears. Most people don't waste time. They fragment it. Small interruptions destroy depth. Shallow effort creates shallow results, so you begin protecting your attention, not because you're extreme, but because distraction is expensive. Every interruption leaves residue. It takes time to return. That return cost accumulates. Once you see this, you value simplicity more. Fewer tasks, fewer commitments, clear priorities. You stop trying to improve everything at once. Scattered effort feels productive but leads nowhere. Concentrated effort feels slow but goes far. This shift brings calm. Calm is misunderstood. People think calm means lack of ambition. In reality, calm is clarity. Chaos looks energetic. Calm builds direction. Another truth becomes clear. Growth does not require constant pressure. Pressure works temporarily, but structure works permanently. You no longer try to be intense every day. You aim to be consistent most days. Consistency does not require hero energy. It requires honesty. Honesty about your limits. Honesty about your capacity. Honesty about what you can repeat without breaking. This honesty protects you from self-betrayal. When goals are unrealistic, failure becomes guaranteed. When systems are realistic, progress becomes automatic. You also begin speaking to yourself differently, not with aggression, not with excuses, but with clarity. You stop insulting yourself for struggling. Struggle is part of the process. You stop praising yourself for emotion. Emotion fades. You respect behavior instead. You learn to trust yourself through small promises kept. That trust becomes internal stability, and stability is rare. Most people live in emotional swings. High hope, low energy. Repeat. You step out of that cycle, not because life becomes easier, but because your response becomes steadier. Another thing quietly changes. You stop looking for recognition. You stop explaining your journey. You stop needing others to understand. Because progress does not need witnesses, it needs repetition. This silence feels strange at first, then it feels freeing. When no one is watching, pressure disappears. You move at your own pace. You build without comparison. Comparison creates urgency. Urgency creates anxiety. Anxiety disrupts focus. Focus builds outcomes, so you protect it. You begin measuring progress differently, not by speed, not by perfection, but by continuity. Did you return after a bad day? Did you resume after losing rhythm? Did you continue even when nothing exciting happened? Those moments matter more than perfect streaks. Because resilience is built in recovery, not in flawless performance. You accept that failure will happen. Missed days, low effort, weak moments. These no longer define you. What defines you is your return. Returning builds identity. Identity shapes destiny. Slowly, you become someone who does not collapse under emotion. You bend. You adapt. You continue. That ability compounds quietly, until one day you realize something powerful. You are no longer chasing motivation. You are no longer waiting. You are simply living in alignment with who you are becoming. And that alignment feels peaceful. Not exciting. Peaceful. That peace is strength. Eventually, you stop trying to become someone new. You realize you are not building a different personality. You are removing what was never truly you, the distractions, the impulses, the habits borrowed from noise. What remains is quieter, more stable, more honest. You stop asking who you should become. You focus on how you should live today. That shift changes everything. Because identity is not created through imagination. It is created through repetition. What you do repeatedly teaches your mind who you are. Not what you say, not what you plan, not what you promise. Action leaves evidence, and the brain believes evidence. That is why small actions matter. They are votes. Votes for the person you are becoming. One day does not decide your life, but patterns do. This is why discipline never looks dramatic from the inside. It looks boring. It looks simple. It looks ordinary. But ordinary repeated long enough becomes extraordinary. Another realization appears quietly. You stop fearing slow progress. Because slow progress is still progress. You fear stagnation now, because stagnation numbs. It makes days blend together. It steals meaning without making noise. Slow growth, even when invisible, keeps you alive internally. It gives direction. Direction gives energy, not excitement. Energy, the sustainable kind. You begin to understand that peace is not the absence of struggle, it is the absence of inner conflict. You can be tired and peaceful, busy and peaceful, challenged and peaceful, because you are no longer fighting yourself. When actions align with values, tension dissolves. That alignment is rare and priceless. You also stop romanticizing the past, the version of you that avoided effort, that chased comfort, that delayed responsibility. You don't hate that version. You understand it. It did what it knew, but you don't return to it, because you now know the cost. Comfort takes time up front. Discomfort takes courage up front. Both charge a price. You simply choose which one you want to pay. You realize that freedom is not doing whatever you want. That was never freedom. That was impulse. Freedom is being able to do what matters even when you don't feel like it. That is real control. Not control over life, control over response. This control builds confidence quietly, not arrogance, not ego. Confidence rooted in trust. Trust that you will show up. Trust that you won't abandon yourself. Trust built through consistency. And that trust changes how you walk through the world. You speak less. You explain less. You react less. Because urgency fades. You are not running anymore. You are moving. With intention. With patience. With direction. Others may not notice immediately. That's fine. Most real growth happens unnoticed. But you feel it. In how you think. In how you pause before reacting. In how you choose effort over escape. Over and over again. This is not a transformation moment. It is a transformation lifestyle. No finish line. No final version. Just continuous refinement. You don't wait for the perfect time anymore. You understand that time does not change people. Behavior does. And behavior, repeated, shapes destiny. Quietly, relentlessly. You are no longer trying to fix your life all at once. You are simply showing up today, and tomorrow, and the next day. That is enough. Because consistency, when protected long enough, becomes identity. And identity, lived daily, becomes your future.